Yard spill has impacted a northeast Wichita neighborhood now for decades. While a corrective action plan was announced last month, a Wichita native says one thing not fully understood is the health impacts and led her to write to some federal agencies. Sean Logging talked with her today about the response she got back and the opportunities she's trying to raise awareness on. Sean.
Mike, that contamination from the Union Pacific rail yard at 29th and Grove into the groundwater underneath a large portion of this historically black neighborhood, all the way down toward Murdoch. So for Kiah Duggins, she tells me it's important to understand the health impacts of this long-term contamination and make sure there's resources to address it. Trichloroethylene, or TCE, was identified as contaminating groundwater by the city of Wichita back in 1994.
Which is the year that I was born. And that chemical TCE is known to cause cancer. It's also known to cause reproductive health issues, birth defects.
The TCE contamination, a chemical commonly used in degreasing of metal parts, was linked back to a Union Pacific rail yard by 29th and Grove. Last fall, when Kiah Duggins was attending a public meeting about the contamination, it surprised her that no study had been or was being done on the health impacts of the contamination.
The zip code where 29th and Grove is located, 67214, 67219 zip codes, have high infant mortality rates.
That's what prompted Kiah to send a letter to the EPA and White House Council on Environmental Quality last November.
Personally find it unacceptable that it's taken so long to inform the community of the health risks of the contaminated groundwater and also to conduct health studies.
In the response she got back earlier this month, it says based on community concern, KDHE is working on a health study looking at cancer and birth outcomes. That study is expected to be done sometime early this year. But another part of that letter has Kiah working to raise awareness in the community.
The EPA is offering $100 million in grant money for environmental justice initiatives, and people have to apply for that by April 10th.
This includes grants open to community nonprofit groups that focus on public health and environmental issues.
Important that the community gets both the healthcare resources that they need and also other forms of reparations to ensure that they can continue to be healthy in the future.
Last month, KDHE released the final corrective action plan to address the contamination, which includes continuing to finish up the mitigation efforts already ongoing, but also treating the groundwater that has been contaminated and setting up monitoring for surface and groundwater. That is expected to cost about $14 million.
Whistleblowing is the activity of a person, often about activity within a private or public organization that is deemed illegal, immoral, illicit, unsafe, or fraudulent. Whistleblowers can use a variety of internal or external channels to communicate information or allegations. Now, that video is from an article in 2023 called Wichita Native Calls Attention Back to Rail Yard Chemical Spill. And I'm going to put that video and this article in the description. And see, now one thing about Kiah Duggins, when it came to her people, when it came to the black community, she was exposing this country. And I noticed in that video, she said the word reparations. I need y'all to remember that word. And she's from Wichita, Kansas. So this meant a lot to her. She wanted to help her people. And I told y'all that teaching job she took in Taiwan, that was the biggest turning point in her life, because when she was in Taiwan, she experienced love. She experienced how to be treated like a human. She experienced real respect. So when she came back to America to go to law school, she wanted her people, she wanted black people to experience the same thing. And if you want to go watch those videos, just go to this YouTube channel and you can watch those videos for yourself. And she says it. And also, I advise y'all to go to her Instagram page, and in her bio, it's a link to a 32-page journal that she wrote back in 2021. Go read that journal because it's very important. So back in Wichita in 1970 and in 1994, they had a chemical spill, but they told nobody in the community about it. They did no studies. They did no investigations. So Kiah Duggins comes along in 2023 and she calls them out. She like, wait, why haven't y'all did no studies on this? Why haven't y'all told the community about this? And the crazy part is she was born in 1994. So it took her all these years to be the first one to expose this. And I said, okay, it's been 2 years. Let me look for recent videos. Let me look for updates. And then I found this video. Check this out.
Union Pacific Rail Yard led to health concerns for people who live in the area around 29th and Grove. Now questions are being raised about the funds that were supposed to help test those impacted by the spill. 12 News reporter Julia Daughtry spoke with local officials and asked them about the holdup.
Kansas lawmakers dedicated $2.5 million for 29th and Grove groundwater testing, but those funds cannot be released until a $1 million match comes from local government, which is the city and county. As of right now, that has not happened. Audrey Bennett, president of the Northeast Melaire Neighborhood Association, says she is frustrated watching elected officials spend money on other things instead of much needed testing.
They're going to put 2 toilets in a public park downtown that will be vandalized. I then see you're going to put $1.25 million into a piece of artwork, but you have not addressed the health of the people of this community in Northeast Wichita.
But according to Councilman Brandon Johnson, who represents the area, the city and county are working to develop a plan and provide people who are affected with more than just one round of testing, which is what the funds would cover now.
You know, there's some funding available for screening and testing that essentially is 1 year, but what we're finding out is that you need more than one round of testing. And so, again, we're looking at a systemic approach.
As County Commissioner Ryan Beatty agrees, saying planning includes proper equipment at local health clinics. He added that past methods of testing remain a concern.
We're not going to throw money at a system that can't handle it. We did that a year ago. Of the nearly $500,000 that was put towards this cause, only $75,000 was spent because the system couldn't handle it.
But money for testing was not included in the city or county budgets, which leaves Bennett frustrated.
How do you sleep at night when it's in your power to do something and you refuse to do it? How do you sleep at night? What if that was your mother, your father? My father died from kidney cancer because of this.
Julia Daughtry, 12 News.
While there's no timeline when the city and county will allot the money for testing, both Beatty and Johnson say a plan is in the works.
And see, that video was from a month ago. See, Kiah Duggins was going to expose the corruption that's going on in Wichita. And then I said, wait. I have to slow down. Let me slow my roll. I need to find a recent article, like something that's very recent. And boom, check this out. Study found high cancer rates near Wichita chemical spill, but new information muddies the results. And this article is from KMUW, published February the 5th, 2025, 5 a.m. by Celia Hack. And the update version was published February the 10th of this year. And remember, that plane crash in D.C. was January the 29th. So ironically, after the plane crash, you want to come up with updates about this. At issue is the physical area the state analyzed in 2023 health study near the 29th and Grove contamination site. The Kansas Department of Health and Environmental has provided inconsistent information on a health study it published 2 years ago about a chemical spill in Northeast Wichita. And look, like I told y'all in other videos, when it comes to these racist Caucasian people, you have to watch their wording. Check this out, what they said. They said provided inconsistent information on a health study. So basically they lied. And look, I'm going to keep it real with y'all. As a truck driver, it's parts of this country that people don't care about. If you never live there, if you don't have family there, people don't care about it. People don't even think about it. And Kansas is one of those places. But that's why it's so easy for them to hide this information. If you go back to that second video, it's only 43 views. People don't care. But when it comes to our people, we have to start caring. The spill near 29th and Grove happened decades ago, contaminating a long plume of groundwater. In 2023, the state published a health study looking into cancer rates and birth outcomes near the spill following requests from residents. The report ultimately found significantly high rates of liver cancer, especially among Black people. While the state emphasized that the study could not determine whether the spill was responsible for the health disparities, the outcome alarmed residents and set into motion legislative and local efforts to provide health screenings for those impacted by the spill. So basically what they were trying to say is the chemical spill was not the cause of the lung cancer in the black community. It wasn't the cause of the birth defects in our black community. You see the games they play? 2 years later, though the state says the physical area it analyzed to measure cancer rates was much larger than the groundwater plume itself and larger than what was originally reported. Some community members now wonder how useful the study's findings are in drawing conclusions about the health impact of the groundwater contamination. So again, back in 2023, when Kiah Duggins called this out, they lied to her. They only gave her 2 area codes. They only gave her 2 zip codes. They lied to her. They didn't give her all the information. And now, days after her death, days after those people died on that plane that was hit by an Army helicopter, it's a coincidence that this article comes out and nobody is reading it. The news is not reading. Nobody is reading this article but me. The study found that the rate of babies with low birth weights born to mothers living above the plume was significantly higher than the rate in Kansas. And you see the silly games they play? Now, this is real racism. On purpose, you put a chemical spill in the black community so people can get lung cancer, so babies can have birth defects on purpose, but you don't do it in the Caucasian neighborhoods in Kansas. So this shows you these racist Caucasians don't just attack us through prison, through food, through music, through entertainment, all that stuff. They attack us with putting chemicals in our neighborhood and watching us slowly die. And then they get paid from it because guess what? You got to go to the hospital now. So it's a circle. State Rep Floyd Carr said at a minimum, when they released that information, it should have came with that disclaimer that the study looked at zip code 67214 and 67219, Carr said. And see, even he said it. They lied. They only gave 2 zip codes. It was thousands of other zip codes that was affected by this chemical spill. And still to this day, people have not received their reparations from this. They have not got their screening. You had people die of lung cancer because of this spill, and they didn't tell the community. It took Kiah Duggins to come alert people, to bring the awareness, to make them do studies. And ironically, this is the chart from 2009 to 2019 of the liver cancer in the black community. They have the highest. Is that by coincidence? No, that's on purpose. And then you got the low birth weight areas in the black community. Look at that chart. In the black community, in our community, they did this on purpose. And she called it out. So you telling me that plane crash was an accident? Hell no. Why they not talking about this? Why nobody talking about Wichita, Kansas? And then you guys sit back and think, imagine the lawsuits that was coming from this. And imagine who was the lawyer. Who was the best lawyer in Kansas? Just coming out of college. She got experience. Who was the best lawyer? Who was speaking on this? Who knows Wichita? Who knows the ins and outs? Who was smart? It was Kiah Duggins. Homeowners filed lawsuit against Union Pacific over groundwater contamination. And look, I'm going to be real. To me, none of this is a coincidence. She was fighting Wichita, Kansas because these people back in the 70s and 1994 were chemical spills and they told no one about it. So imagine the amounts of money they was going to have to pay people. Now she was unalived in that plane crash. Now they can just let it go. They can just move on because who's going to really fight like Kiah Duggins was fighting? And then she was from Wichita, Kansas. So she loved where she was born. She loved where she's from. Who's going to fight like she was fighting? They knew this. And if you're new to my channel, I did multiple videos of Kiah Duggins right after that plane collision. I want you to go watch those videos and you tell me what your gut feeling says. Because like I always say, when that crash first happened, your gut feeling go tell you what it is. And now look, every day it's a plane crash. But no one is talking about that plane crash in DC. People just moved on like it never happened. But like I said, I'm not finished with this story about Kiah Duggins because I know this rabbit hole gets crazier and crazier. Who knows that she was fighting a chemical spill that affected a black community, not just any black community, a historical black community. People were dying of lung cancer. You heard the woman in the video, she lost her father. And ironically, the only people that were affected was black people. Ain't that something? So again, rest in peace to everyone that was on that flight. My heart hurts because, like I say, these people had lives to live. These people were looking forward to something. And look, I don't know if Kiah Duggins was the only target on that plane, but I'll tell you this, that plane collision wasn't an accident. I'm out.